Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to give it a couple minutes for more people to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, thanks so much for joining us today. Happy New Year and happy almost end of the LSA data cleaning and review period. Today, we are going to quickly go through the timeline again, what is going to happen in the next week, and then review the resources and Weebly updates like we have in past meetings. The format is going to be pretty much the same. We're then going to open it up for Q&A, so you can type whatever you'd like in the chat, and we will try to get to everyone's questions if we can. So the timeline, we are in our last just over a week of the data cleaning and review period. On the 11th, as you'll see in this calendar, it is the deadline. So all uploads into the system need to be made by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on the 11th. That's when we'll be locking the system so that no new official uploads can be uploaded. Just to point out, you will still be able to upload local use files for other purposes, Stella, etc., looking at other data. For the LSA, the official HUD review file is the only one that we look at for the LSA, and you need to have an official one uploaded by that deadline. You will not be able to replace your upload after that, and you should also not try to delete or upload a new one because then your notes will be lost, and that will just be, not a fun time for anyone. So final uploads, the great thing about this year is that you will get all of your flags immediately. So if you upload at 10 p.m. Pacific time next Wednesday, you will get all of your updated errors and warning flags immediately and can add final last-minute warning notes on those. After the deadline, whatever warning notes that have newly been submitted that we haven't responded to, we will do a final review in the next week or two following that Wednesday deadline, and get, and respond to those warnings. You just won't have a chance to kind of add more notes after that. In rare circumstances, we might reach out to you to ask you follow-up questions. Just a reminder, we are always looking to keep as much data as possible. So if we feel like a quick question could help us include some data, we might reach out to you, but otherwise you should kind of think of the 11th as your final opportunity to upload new data and to put warning notes in the system in HGX 2.0. So as I said, between now and next Wednesday, you're going to want to try to resolve all errors in your HMIS system and re-upload your data set. Then you're going to also want to concurrently provide detailed warning notes for things that are correct, that there's no need to fix in your HMIS system, and you're just going to explain whether the data are correct or incorrect and why. You're going to want to be as explicit as possible, especially if you're submitting notes towards the end of the deadline that we're not going to have a chance to review and get back to you before the deadline. As we said in previous office hours, this next week and a half is going to be very busy with a lot of people submitting notes, and we are going to try to get those back to you as quickly as possible, but especially next week, depending on the number of people submitting and the number of notes being submitted, that just might not be possible to get it back to you. So try to be as thorough as possible so we can understand what's going on and we don't need any follow-up information, and let us know kind of what, at the end of the day, we do need to know whether your data in the HMIS system is correct or not. So make sure that's easy to understand in your explanation. After the 1/11 deadline, as I mentioned, we might reach out for clarifying information, and we, once we are finished with our final review, we will be marking your data set complete, and you will get an auto email. I think it's at least the primary and submitter will get an auto email from HGX 2.0 saying your data set has been marked complete. They look similar to, your data set is ready for review, those kinds of emails, but it'll say your data set is marked ready for complete, and that's when you can go in and look at kind of what those final statuses were for all your warning notes, and that indicates that we think that we are done reviewing your notes, and they will be, and your data will move on into the next stage of analysis. A couple of tips for writing warning notes, just so, to help everyone out to get to where we need on the warnings. As I said, and I think we've mentioned before in other office hours, high volume notes, when we get a high volume of notes to review, if a lot of the notes say we're working on it, so an example that would be like, we've reached out to our provider and are waiting for a response. That can clog up the amount of time it takes to actually get to the notes that have information in them. So you can include those, but you don't have to. And maybe if, on next Wednesday, if you haven't received a response, if you haven't been able to update your data, then leave a note explaining like what's happening. We reached out to the provider, they weren't able to respond. Tell us whether you think the data is accurate or not and why, and then we'll go forward with that information. We have an example here of a warning note with a sufficient amount of information. The provider confirmed the length of stay for this project is correct. After reviewing enrollment data, households in this project tended to stay longer because they had higher needs and COVID made the local housing market tighter. In this, you have whether the data is correct or not, and you have a detailed explanation for why. As a reminder, do not include any PII in your emails to the regional inboxes or in these warning notes. And then a couple other reminders, if a flag is classified as note sufficient, so if you've provided a note, we've read it, we say that makes sense, and we've marked it as note sufficient, if you add another note, it will set the status back to needs review, and it will look like you have fewer, it'll look like you have fewer successful notes. So the only reason you would want to add another note is if for some reason you don't think your original note is correct, you think maybe their data is wrong now, or there's something else that needs to be done or whatnot. But just, if you see note sufficient, unless you think something is wrong with what you originally put, you just leave it. There's nothing else that you have to do there. And then a reminder that you have to hit the submit button, submit for review button, in order for our review team to know that you're ready for us to review your warning notes. So if you have put in warning notes and maybe you're still waiting on a couple or whatever, you don't want to submit, that's totally fine. But if you have warning notes and you think we're automatically going to look at them, we're not. So we will look at all notes after the deadline, but unless you submit them now, we're not going to go into people's notes unless you say you're ready for us to look at them. So just wanted to get that out there and remind everyone about that. And then we have, these slides are all the same. I've added that December 2022 HMIS lead webinar. They did a demo of EVA, which is the R-based DQ data quality tool. So the CSV, the version is still available, and you can use that for the rest of this review period if you want to. It just won't be supported going forward. So more information on that, feel free to submit an AQ or ask your liaison if you have questions about EVA or the old DQ tool. But that was demoed in December. And then we do have all of our previous office hours up on the HUD Exchange. The links to that should be in the email that you received to register for this. So you can go and look up, and it has that information in it. These are all the same resource links. So all of these links exist in our previous, in the previous office hours here that we linked to. And then my final thing for me is that we're going to head into Weebly Updates. Sean has a couple updates for you all. My update is on flag 693. We've talked about it before. It was on the Weebly. As a reminder, there was, it was found that there was some error in the sample code that vendors needed to then fix on their individually, and then send out, and then people with the flag 693 should re-upload their data set after their vendor has made the fix. And so we were told that vendors would be reaching out to COCs when they've made the fix, letting them know that they could re-upload. And so we recommend that if you haven't heard from your vendor yet, or you have and you're still experiencing the 693 issue, to reach back out to your vendor and ask, ask them. You can also let your liaison know, but that's ultimately going to be probably a vendor question. So that's where we're at with that, and I will have Sean give the other Weebly update.
Hi, everyone. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. I find it useful to be able to see what's going on. So just press the share button. You should be able to see my screen now. So, right, so here's my version of the HDX page. I'm bringing this up just to call your attention to this link up here when you click on the LSA module, and that is to this Weebly page, what we refer to as the Weebly page, that we use to keep you all abreast of different outstanding issues and resolved issues. So this is just updated just a couple hours ago. Basically, we still have this outstanding issue we refer to as the blue issue, which has to do with some flags for which the flag IDs might change from one upload to the next. And so if the flag IDs change, that it means that any notes that you left for that flag it would appear to be lost. It's still in the system, it's still recoverable, but you might lose track of it in your submission, or your upload, I should say. So if you notice anything funny about your notes or your flag statuses not seeming like they're adding up or being pulled in, just take a note take a look at the different flags that are called out here. Note that there are some ranges. So 1055, for example, would be one of the flags that we would expect this issue to be popping up for. And then you can do your own analysis if you've downloaded an old version or previous version of your flag exports, and take a look and compare that to your new ones. You can do your own analysis. You can also get in touch with one of our liaisons and have them do that for you as well, just to make sure that those notes do get imported over. So we're happy to help you with that if you notice any issues with that. So that's what we refer to as the blue issue, because this is a known issue. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it this year. We'll definitely make this change next year, but this is something that we expect to continue to be an issue moving forward. Another fix that we're working on is this one, that the latest notes are not appearing in the tabular view. Basically, between the HDX user, which has one column, and then the COC user, which has another column, HDX is currently, for some COCs at least, only showing one of those two notes. So it's whoever left the most recent note of the two gets shown and the other one doesn't get shown. That should be fixed by the end of the week. Otherwise, we have some outstanding issues for red banners. We don't have any more reports of red banner issues. If you don't know what that means, that's great. Hopefully you won't run into anything like that, or server processing errors on upload. And just as Kiara pointed out before, we do have some a fix reported for most vendors for the 693 error. So that's the rundown on the Weebly page. If you do have any more issues, please do check this first and then get in touch with your liaison to put in a report, and we'll be happy to follow up.
And Sean, did you want to just respond to Antonio?
Yeah, so Antonio asked if a note is classified as needing further information, should we be able to edit the original note? Right now, Antonio was saying that he cannot. So the answer is no, Antonio. You can't update old notes that you leave in the modular view. Basically, it's designed to be like a chat feature. So you say one thing, you say another. It's just like sending it like a text chat. But it is very useful if you basically, in the latest note that you leave basically as comprehensive a note as possible. So you might want to incorporate information from your previous note. One of the reasons that that's useful is because the latest note is the only note that gets pulled into the export when you press the export button on the data's, the warnings and, the error and warnings report.
And we have a couple other that I think we can tag team. Antonio asked a follow-up question. We can see the original note because right now we can't. Sorry for any confusion. Okay, so we'll get back to that. That's a different issue maybe. But just kind of on what you were saying, Sean. Okay, this is also an Antonio question. When a note is accepted, is it marked as note sufficient or does it disappear from the list? So I think, okay, so I think that's the follow-up of like, the note should not disappear from the list if it is still being flagged or still there, and once it's marked sufficient, it should stay there. If you have warnings that are staying from one upload to the next, but your notes aren't, then that is an issue that you should report to your liaison. And I think, Sean, we just want information about what they're seeing so that we could look into it and see if it's one of these issues already known or a different issue.
I would add to that. So for the second question that Antonio asked, if the status will stay in your list if the data underneath that flag does not change. However, if you went in and made some fixes to some of your data and then it resolves the issue, then that flag might disappear. But that would be the only case in which a note sufficient flag might not appear in your list anymore.
I'm gonna switch to Victoria to answer a question from Ureli and Lori.
So I can jump straight into Lori's question, which is about flag 758. This is where counts of bed nights among shelter projects is greater than the unduplicated COC-wide count. And she is asking, we've got several overlaps due to the COVID pandemic and wanted to know if there is a number or percentage that makes this acceptable and removes the error. The difference between these two numbers is about 1%. And actually the threshold for that exact flag is actually 1%. So it seems like you are right on the line there. If you haven't already, you may want to try using the new web-based data quality tool, EVA, if you have access to a hashed CSV file. If you don't, you can also use the Excel-based version. It uses the exact same checks as EVA does. And that would help to find the all of the overlaps. And from there, you may be able to distinguish overlapping enrollments that are due to COVID versus overlapping enrollments that are due to something else. And those are the overlaps that you will want to focus on, and that may bring that number down. And then for Yareli's question regarding EVA, so is EVA released to vendors first or everyone all at once? We won't be able to use the full potential of EVA until next year because our HMIS CSV file is not hashed. And the blindness report doesn't line up with the LSA. I think there are a number of COCs in that boat. EVA was released to everyone all at once. You may still have luck using the older version, again, the Excel-based version of the CSV data quality tool that does not use a hashed CSV, and it does use the same data quality checks as EVA. So if you are familiar with the Excel-based version and you've used that before in the past, that is another tool that you can still tap into. It's still available.
All right, Sean, go ahead with Melissa's question.
Okay. Hi, Melissa. So Melissa asked, she said she put some notes on warnings and saved them in HDX, and she replaced them. The notes were not there, and the warnings were still there. Any guide on that? So Melissa, it sounds like this is likely due to what we call this blue issue. It's the first thing that is on the Weebly page. So double check to make sure that the flags that you expect there to be notes are in that list. That might be an indication of the fact that we know that something is wrong. And otherwise, just get in touch with your liaison, and your liaison can help you reinstitute the notes. It's especially useful if you do have some old copies of the notes that you ended up putting into HDX. It's useful to provide those to your liaison. Generally, as a rule of thumb, I think it's a really good thing for all users basically to download their errors and warnings before every time you upload a new data set. That is so that you can keep a copy of whatever notes you have on handy. That's just basically another way of saying just keep another copy of your notes on hand outside of HDX. We expect this to be working fully next year, so that's hopefully that won't be our directive from basically this year forward, but that is the case now. So thanks for your patience. Great, I see your note, Melissa. So otherwise, folks, we're just monitoring the chat and we're responding to these in kind of a popcorn style we have our own system of communicating with each other. So that's what we're referring to at the moment. But if you have an outstanding question, just bear with us and we'll address it in good time.
I do want to hop to Tim's comment here. Says that I found that the timestamps on my notes are getting overwritten with the last upload time. So then the back and forth is in a weird order. Is that a known issue that I missed? Kim, if you haven't already, could you please reach out to your liaison with the details of what you are seeing with that so we can take a closer look? And we will definitely follow up with you either for more information or if we have an answer for you on our end. All right, it looks like Kayla is responding that she's got the same issue. And Kayla, if you could do the same thing as well, if you could just reach out to your liaison with the details of that issue that you're seeing.
And Sean, if you're ready for Serene's question.
Yes. Okay, so Serene mentioned flags IDs are changing. Flag IDs are changing from upload to upload. How will we be able to track our notes were imputed previously since we use flag IDs as unique fields to track notes used to which record? Right, so Serene has a great point saying it's hard to compare one upload to the next because you don't have a unique ID that uniquely identifies the field. That's where we can help. Basically, the way that we do compare them from one to the other is by creating a concatenated ID that is based on the flag description, because that is unique for most of the warning flags from one upload to the next. But Serene, basically, I would recommend that you get in touch with your liaison if you're losing those notes, and then we can follow up with you.
And just, I think, Antonio, you said that the new upload is erasing the previous note. It sounds like that maybe, if this hasn't already been said, sorry, keeping track of a bunch of things. If you could let your liaison know that, just like has been said for other people, and we can make sure we get a ticket. And then, you know, it's, I appreciate the people that have reached out and said that this isn't happening for them. That's helpful. But for basically, if someone mentions an issue that you're also having, it does help for you to still reach out to your liaison with details about what's going on for you, because then that just gives us more to look at and figure out what's going on. And it'll also help us, you know, if there is a problem and we fix it, then we can reach out to people and let them know when we have, if you've let us know that you're experiencing that. There was a question from, I'm just going to go ahead and, oh, Tanya, you answered in the chat, I guess. Yeah, there you go. Just to expand on that, and for Wendy, if you weren't here at the beginning, and anyone else who wasn't here at the beginning, liaisons and reviewers are going to be reviewing warning notes this week. Someone else asked, you know, you still submit in batches? Yes, you can submit in batches. You can submit all your notes. We recommend that you do submit something this week. We are trying to keep up that 24 to 48 hour response time. Like I said in past, sometimes that can be delayed because we're trying to get an answer from an expert or figure out what our response should be. And so sometimes those take a little bit longer, but you can, if we have responded to 9 out of 10 notes and put them kind of, you know, an official response, you'll be able to see that even before we send it back to you. So you can kind of keep track of how many things and what we might need more information on before we officially send it back if we're waiting on that, you know, last note that we're just trying to confirm a response for. Starting the beginning of next week, we're just unsure of how many people and how many notes we're going to need to be responding to. And so if you submit notes as of Monday, we will probably be able to get Monday notes back to people by Wednesday. But the Tuesday, Wednesday, it's just unclear whether we'll be able to get people back notes. Again, if all your notes are sufficient or we don't need any more information, you wouldn't necessarily need those notes back to you. It just can be helpful if we do need more information, that we have that opportunity to review and ask you for that information. But that's why we kind of went over what you can include in your notes, so hopefully we don't have to ask you again. And just Serane's question that just came in, yes, you can submit notes over the weekend. Notes can be entered and submitted at any time. Our staff primarily works business hours Monday through Friday, but we are all over the country. So definitely don't hold off and wait till Monday. Submit as soon as you can, and our team will also get back to you as soon as they can. Victoria, if you want to go ahead with Melissa's question.
Yeah, so Melissa is asking about flags, I believe 1,139 through 1,195, and those are all HIC comparison flags. So it's important to keep in mind that those flags are really just looking at a single point in time, just one date, and that is the night of your COC's HIC or point in time count. So what you'll want to do is review both inventory in HMIS for that one specific date and the inventory that was reported on your 2022 HIC. You will want to identify in your note which of the numbers is correct and also describe, you know, any potential reasons for the discrepancy. It is also important to note that rapid rehousing inventory is collected differently on the HIC than it is in HMIS. So seeing different numbers between the HIC and LSA inventory is not out of the ordinary for that project type. For all of the other project types though, emergency shelter, transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, safe haven, you know, if the HIC is identified as correct, we typically, say 95% of the time, maybe 99, expect that the HMIS inventory records would match, right? Because you're saying, for example, this project had 30 beds in shelter on the night of the point in time count. And an HMIS, maybe you have 15 beds for that one date. That just means that the inventory for that specific project type, bed type, household type would need to be updated in HMIS to match. Like I said, there are some instances where we might expect discrepancies, but for the most part, because it is only looking at one single date, one single point in time, the numbers should typically match. And just to clarify, because I have seen some questions come up about this, you would want to make those inventory updates in your HMIS if you've identified that the HIC is correct. You will want to make those changes in your HMIS for that project or several projects, and then re-export your LSA report from your HMIS and then upload that data set back into HDX 2.0.
And Sean, if you're ready for Francis's question.
So hi, Francis. Francis asked for flag statuses that say additional information requested from COC data have changed. Even if it already has a note, do I have to provide a new note or wait until the HDX team provides a new response? So the way that this works, Francis, is that, well, just for everybody's benefit, you might have a note in the system, and with any kind of status, right? It has red color, orange color, green color, yellow, whatever. If you make another upload into the system and the data for that flag that was tripped, the underlying data has changed, we want you to know that you've made some change to your HMIS system that has resulted in that new structure of the data. So you will always be alerted of that. So that is to say that even if one of us on the HDX team marks your flag as note sufficient, if you change the data in your HMIS and then re-upload, it will go back to that orange data have changed flag. That is because we want for you to note that you have made some change to your data. And it's very useful, Francis, basically, if you then leave a note that says, yes, the data have changed, but my previous note is still relevant. Basically, that's just to say, yeah, we just want to know if the data really are good when they've changed.
And it's helpful if you say the data have changed, but the previous note, what Chandra said, and then copy that previous note so that your most comprehensive note is the most recent note.
Right.
And I will say that just to be thinking about this, sometimes you might have changed data in your HMIS that results in very minimal changes to the underlying data for a flag, and it'll still populate, and it's very reasonable that your original note could still apply. However, we also want you to take a look at things, because if data have changed very drastically, and your original note doesn't apply anymore, doesn't make sense with the new data, we do expect a new explanation of what's going on there. I think that's probably less common, but if you had an overutilization and it went to a way underutilization, there's not, your original note probably didn't work, and we also want to kind of know for those large differences what might be happening there. And so that's an indication of just give as much detail as possible so we understand what's going on and we don't need to ask for more information in our follow-up. But if it is a small change or whatever, yeah, that original note can be utilized over again. It's just a automatic system setting that it'll go back to you. So I'm going to go to Victoria for Ashley's.
Yes, so Ashley is asking about flag 1313, which is an error regarding not one head of household. So they've ran different reports and also the HMIS CSV data quality tool to figure out the households with the issues, but all reports regarding that error indicate that no head of household issues are found. This has come up a few times. First, I want to make sure that the HMIS CSV that you are using includes every single project that your LSA contains. A lot of vendors pull projects automatically for the LSA, but you may not have that same automation for pulling projects with your CSV. It might be that you are manually selecting your projects for your CSV, and you might not have to do that with your LSA. So that's the first thing I would check, is to just ensure that all of the projects are matching up. The second thing is, you've probably already done that. You might also consider that it could be an issue with head of household IDs, excuse me, not head of household IDs, household IDs, instead of issues specifically with head of household. There needs to be a unique household ID for each enrollment. Even if family members are roughly the same from enrollment to enrollment, the expectation is that there is a unique household ID for every enrollment. That is different from vendor to vendor. Getting that household ID created for each enrollment is different depending on what vendor you have. For some vendors, it's kind of an automatic process, and HMIS users don't really have to do any steps to get that household ID created. For other vendors, there may be some intermediate steps that you need to do in order to ensure that unique household ID gets created before that household gets put into an enrollment. And the reason why the household ID needs to be unique, the reason why that's important is because if you're sharing a household ID, or if you've got a household ID that is used from enrollment to enrollment, but your relationships within the households change from enrollment to enrollment, and you've got some clients leaving an enrollment and other clients coming in, that could impact the relationship to head of household or the head of household status itself. So that is also something to look into. Unfortunately, the HUD data quality tools that are currently out, HUD and not HUD, EVA and the Excel-based version of the CSV data quality tool do not have that check. It's really just looking for head of household missing or more than one head of household. So that is something that you will need to work with your vendor if you suspect that it is potentially a household ID issue and not head of household missing or head of household too many identified within an enrollment.
Thanks, Victoria. And Sean, I think you have a question or two you're ready to answer.
Sure, yeah. So from Kayla, Kayla asks, how will the liaisons help us to get the older notes that didn't carry forward if we did not think to export before doing a new upload? So Kayla's question is in reference to those situations where some people might be losing track of their notes. Again, this is most likely due to this blue issue, which is a known issue, and unfortunately one that we're living with this year. If that's news to you, such as for you, Julie, it sounds like because of another question that you had that had to do with losing notes, go ahead and check the Weebly just for some context. Basically, if Kayla, if you didn't download your flags before your most recent upload, then just get in touch with your liaison and we can try to dig those up for you. It might take a little bit of time, so you might try to do your own cost benefit. It might make sense for you to basically just leave your own notes again, and we're very sorry about that. But otherwise, we can dig them up for you if you left a lot of information in them. And Julie, just to make sure we're addressing everything that you were asking about, you should reach out to your liaison. Julie asks, who can we reach out to if we're trying to rework these? Explain the problem to your liaison, and then they can help you. They've been informed of the issue, so they can help you troubleshoot.
Sean, were you ready to answer the other question or no?
I think I answered one from Kayla and another one from Julie.
Oh, sorry. I didn't notice that. Okay, great. And then, okay, go ahead, Victoria, with Chris's question.
Yeah, Carissa, so the note here is we're having issues with our vendor correcting errors. Is there a number of errors that will make our LSA unusable? Carissa, if you could please reach out to your liaison and we should be able to help you with that off of this webinar.
So I'm just going to go ahead and take Surian's follow-up question. If we add an explanation to warning flag and status changed to note sufficient, does that mean our submission is completed? So there's lots of different levels to this. You will know that your submission, that your LSA fiscal year 2022 is complete when you receive an auto email from HDX 2.0 that says your submission is complete. If you have not received that, then and your status in HDX 2.0 is not complete, then there are outstanding things. Those could be because you have remaining errors to address, or if, basically before the deadline a data set can be marked complete if all errors are addressed and all warning notes are addressed and marked sufficient. At that point, then your review team, your liaison reviewer review team would mark it complete. After the deadline, we will mark data sets complete when we have finished our review. That does not necessarily mean that all errors have been addressed and all warnings have notes with them. It just means that we have done what we can, we have all done what we can do for this year, and we are marking it complete to go forward. I think we've answered all questions. So I know a couple people have said that they joined late, and I'm just going to do a brief. I will just say that these, the slides, the recording, and the Q&A for today will probably not be posted before the deadline next week, or maybe right before the deadline, so maybe not too helpful. So for those of you who joined late, just reminder that the deadline is next Wednesday, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, regardless of where you are in the country or what time zone you're in. That means that no official uploads will be accepted after that 11:59 deadline, and no notes, but you can upload at 10 p.m. Pacific time. You'll get all of your updated flags immediately, and you can add notes up until that very end. Another point is that you can, this has been asked before, you can upload as many times as you want at any time of day or night. Everything besides, review teams responding to warnings, notes are all kind of automatic happening in the system. So you can keep going and, make one change to your system and upload a new data set to see if an error falls off, etc. And you can do that as many times as you want. If you are experiencing any issues like the ones we've talked about or any new issues, please reach out to your liaison via those regional inboxes immediately with as much detail of the issue you're experiencing as possible, and we will get looking into it as fast as we can and be in touch with you. Yeah, so Teddy just said, I'm getting an upload error message. That's something that you'd want to look at the error message you're getting, send it to your vendor, and also let our liaisons know. Yeah, we will, and then just as, I've said before on this, even if someone else said something about an error or an issue that you start to have or are already having, please email your own liaison. That helps us keep track of how many people are experiencing the issue and reach back. Your liaison will reach back out to you when we've resolved the issue or we have an answer for it. And the more information we have, the better we're able to assess the problem. Renita, if you could just explain what you mean by that, that would be great. I don't know, Victoria or Megan, if Lisa's question sounds like the HIC comparison warnings were only for the day of the HIC.
That's right.
Yes.
Renita, this posting will probably not be posted very far in advance of the deadline to be the most useful, but if you scroll up in the chat, or I will try and put it again, there are links to our previous webinars that you can, I will put again, that you can look for recordings. The previous LSA office hours we've held are very similar in structure to this. So you'll be able to watch those, get resources. Yeah, thanks, Tanya. And reach out to your liaison with any specific questions. There was, I'll just pull this back again. So Megan had put this in a response, but I'm putting this again. The last link is the LSA submission guide. That will help you with any process type stuff as far as like how to add warning notes, how to work in the HDX 2.0 system. Some of our previous office hours have live demos that Sean did about the system. So you can definitely go to those, and that might be, you know, faster than waiting for your liaison to get back to you. You're welcome to watch the Q&As that we've had. Our previous office hours have the transcript and Q&A. So if you don't have time to watch the whole hour, you can skim through the Q&A document, see if we've answered your question. But otherwise, if you have specific questions, yeah, your liaison is probably the best bet, especially if you're having issues. As Sean said, you can see the Weebly site to see already known issues. But right now, besides that kind of blue issue of losing notes and the flag 693, we're not working on a lot, we're not working on other issues. So it's likely that if you're experiencing something different, it's something we don't know about, and so definitely let your liaison know. I'll open it up to anyone else on the team that has any final tips, tricks, requests. I just want to say again, no PII in emails or notes, and remember to hit the submit for review button. It is likely that only one person on your team has that submit. It should be the case that only one person on your team has that submit rights, and it may not be you. So you can figure out who has those rights in your HDX 2.0 and just make sure that they submit. Primary contact can update the submit privileges. And yeah. And we're almost done, everyone. With this one part of your year, at least.
I just have one extra thing before class is dismissed. We've been saying quite a few times on this webinar, reach out to your liaison, reach out to your liaison. Please do not hesitate. If you have any questions, send an email. We can also talk, on a call. That was something that I did not know when I was an HMIS admin for the first LSA cycle that I ever did. You can reach out to your liaison and ask to set up a call one-on-one so we can answer questions that you may have. So if that seems like is something that you would like to do, don't hesitate. And good luck. We're almost done.
Yeah, phone calls, video calls, what have you. If you can just feel free to invite the regional inbox to a meeting or ask them for a meeting. If you want to call all of the liaisons and review teams, we have, work emails or work phone numbers. So they're usually, depending on the signature block, your liaison might not have included that, but we have them, and so you can feel free to ask for them, and then use that as your primary method of communication. I know some people like that, and I know when I was a liaison, sometimes that could really cut through a lot of questions way faster than trying to explain them and communicate via email. So
just another piece of advice. Sorry, Paula will be answering your question in just a moment. But I would say if try to submit as early as you can this week. Just because things we're going to get liaisons, reviewers will be very short on time early next week. So the more that you can get done this week, the more likely it is that you'll be able to get time and attention from your reviewer and liaison pair. So do what I would say, yeah, generally do whatever you can this week.
And as Sean has already said a bunch of times, we do really apologize for this flu issue, and definitely it will be fixed before next year, and unfortunately can't be fixed this year. But because of that, submit often and early, but either before you submit, export your file with all your notes, or if you want to work in an Excel document and copy in your notes and then submit, whatever works best for you and is easiest and quickest for you. That, like Sean said, we should be able to find a backup, but with this week being crazy, it would probably just be easier, and although not ideal, what we have to deal with for the next week and a half, and then we'll work on making things better for next year. And yeah, thank you all for coming. Paula, we're still working on one of your questions, but thank you so much for, being an example of, yeah, we all can forget to submit.
So for Paula's question, this is for flag 1217. There's a two-night discrepancy between the sum of the total shelter bed nights and the unduplicated combined COC-wide count of bed nights. 2 nights is not a lot. So perhaps if you've got bigger fish to fry, don't worry about that so much. But if you do want to narrow down what those enrollments are and who they belong to, the HMIS CSV data quality tools, either the web-based version, EVA, or the Excel-based version, are your friends. And so I would recommend using those tools to locate those enrollments if you're really wanting to get those measly too. But otherwise, if you've got bigger issues, I would focus on those first.
And for anyone in the position, I'll have this be the last thing, and then we'll sign off. For anyone in the position where you don't think you're going to get through all of your errors and warnings in the next week, or at least resolving all of your error data quality issues, and want to talk through how to best prioritize kind of similar questions, please reach out to your liaison. That's kind of a very individualized conversation, and your review team can take a look at what you've got going on and help you think through that. So don't, anything, we can, we'll maximize the next week, and it's still worthwhile to do what you can, each one of you can, even if you can't get to all of the issues by next Wednesday. And we thank you so much for joining us. I guess last minuscule question, is there a file size limit? It's for the LSA CSV file for...
Tashika, tell me your COC.
It's CT 503, right?
That's right, okay.
505.
505, okay. That's right. Yeah, why don't, Tanya, why don't you follow up with her privately?
Yeah, Tachiko, you might need to just do the upload again on your behalf. I think there's just something going on there. So if you want to email your CSV files to your liaison, we can try and troubleshoot that with you again.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck.